Hi students, Miss Walsh here. So today we're going to do a little bit of line revision. Perhaps you remember the basics. You remember your good old y equals mx plus b, and hopefully you remember that m is slope, a rise over run, and the b is the y-intercept. And there's another form for writing the line, and it's called the standard form. And that is where first you have the x values, then the y's, and then the constants, and it's all set to 0. And the condition here is that the a, b, and the c do have to be all integers, okay? So this is the same equation in the two different forms. And to go from one form to the other is just a matter of simple algebra, okay? So for example, if you wanted to go from the intercept form into the standard form, what we could do is we could put the y, let's subtract the y from both sides, and put it after the x values. So we would have minus y minus 5 like this. And now remember that I mentioned that the a, b, and c's do have to be integers, and you have a half here, right? So what we want to do is we just want to take and multiply both sides, in case this is 0 here, but nonetheless multiply everything by 2, okay? And when we double it, then you can see this times 2 will just be then x, this will be 2y, this would be 10, and now you've just expressed it in the standard form. If you wanted to go back, you can just do the algebraic process again. So for example, take the 2y to the other side, and you would have x minus 10 is equal to 2y, and now we're going to divide everything by 2, and you can see that that will yield y 1/2, there's a 1 here, 1/2 x minus the 5, okay? So those are the two forms. In order for you to graph it on your calculator, and actually on the graph as well, as we'll do in a moment, it does have to be in this intercept form, okay? Slope by intercept form, sometimes it's called. So let's remember our graphing, and we're going to graph these two lines. And maybe you remember that in order for us to successfully graph, we always start at the y-intercept. So this is where I'm going to start. And then what we want to do is we want to go rise over run. Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to go a rise of 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to run over 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's my y-intercept of 1, and then you go 3 up, 1 over. And of course you can go ahead and extend that, right? The line doesn't end, and do it like this, okay? Let's try this one. Notice that this one is a little bit different because it has a negative slope and it has no y-intercept. And if there's no y-intercept, then it means that the y-intercept is 0. So we're going to start at 0, and then it's a negative. So I'm going to go down 2 instead, and then 3 across 1, 2, 3, okay? And I can go ahead and extend that now. And again, 2 up. You can also go 2 up and 3 to the left instead. That's the same thing, okay? So that's how we graph a line. We can also, remember, graph it on the calculator. And just to show you quickly on the calculator, what I did here is I graphed this line right here. And what I wanted to remind you of is I wanted to remind you of how to determine the x and the y intercepts quickly. And in order for you to determine the y-intercept, remember that at the y-intercept, the x is 0, so we can just go to x0, and then there's the y-intercept. And if you want the x-intercept, perhaps you remember, then that's just the root, and there's your x-intercept right there, okay? So that's for the calculator. Okay, the next bit is the horizontal and the vertical lines. And remember, for the horizontal line, you have you have a slope of 0, okay? So just anywhere at all, if you wanted to draw something like this, then the equation of this line would just be y is equal to 2, okay? As opposed to if you wanted to draw a vertical line, and let's say we have something like this. Whoop. Okay, and then what we have here is this, the equation of this line would be x is equal to -1. Okay, so remember, whatever it goes through, that's sort of this goes through the y-intercept, so it's the y equals 2. If it goes through axis, and this goes through the x-axis, and so the equation is x is equal to -1. Okay, the next one here, determining the x and the y intercepts algebraically. So this is useful as another method of graphing, okay? So for the x-intercept, you know that y is always 0. So we can just set 0 in here. And then we're going to have x minus 0. And so 5. And then there's our x-intercept at 5. Okay, if we want the y-intercept, now on the y-intercept, perhaps you remember that the x value is always 0. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make x 0. And then here what we want to do is we just want to divide by -2 on both, and we end up with 5 is equal to, I'm going to put it as a decimal, it's easier for graphing. So the y-intercept is -2.5. Okay, there we go. Miss Walsh, drawing straight lines is a no-no, so I am just going to use my handy line tool. Just looks much better. Now you'll notice that there's a weird peekaboo with eyes there that I drew. I wasn't just being fun and practicing drawing. The peekaboo method just means that you close whatever you want. Yeah, so if you need the x-intercept, just close this with your finger and now you can solve this equation. -2y5. If you need the y-intercept, just close this with your finger, and that's a quick way to graph the line, okay? So last bit, and that is writing the equation of a line, okay? So we've graphed, we've rearranged into the different forms, and we've revised the intercept. The last thing for this part 1 of graphing revision is writing the equation. And again, as always, I do encourage you to just pause the video and see whether you remember. And if you do, just forward to the end to check if you're right, then you're good to go. That's great. All right, so I always like to just label the coordinates. And then the first thing, we always want to find the slope. Perhaps you remember the equation is the rise over run. It's that change in the y's and the change in the x's. And with the labeling, this becomes easy. So we have 6 minus 3. And then we have -1 minus 2. And then we have 3 over -3 minus 1. Okay. The next step, what you want to do is you want to go into that slope y-intercept form and just pick any point. Remember, they both go through this line, right? So it doesn't matter which one you pick. I'll just pick this one for no reason at all. And this is 3 minus 1, and what we're doing now is we're finding the y-intercept. Okay, and now we're just going to add 2 to both sides. Whoops. And then we get 5, okay? And so your final equation would be -1x, or minus x is equal to +5. And if you want, you can rearrange that. Let's finish where we started, which was the 2 different forms. So let's rearrange this. Remember, first the x's, then the y's, then the constants. So we're going to put both of these things on the other side. And so in the standard form, this would be x plus y minus 5, because it comes over, equals to 0. And so this is in standard form. Okay, that's lines. Quick summary. Bye.